Hi, I'm Veronica. I'm a 6'2" self-projected projector, and this is my human design experiment. In today's episode, I am talking about my determination. So, determination. It is often translated as how and what we're supposed to eat. But determination is so much more than just the food that we consume. We are fed and we are nourished by more than just food. And I've really been thinking a lot about that since I started studying variable and thinking about having an open taste determination. You know, what is in season for me? What is fresh? What's out of season? What has gone stale in my life? You know, what is no longer feeding me that maybe I'm trying to nourish myself with, but it's not working. So I guess let's start with food. When I discovered that open taste or taste determination was all about eating things repetitively, I knew, yep, this is my determination for sure. I will eat the same thing, like the same meal, over and over, day after day, week after week, month after month, sometimes for years on end. So, and if any of my friends were to probably, if you were to ask them about it, they would probably bring up the long period of time where I would make ground beef with plantains and salsa, black beans. Like, that was my meal for years. And it's interesting because when something is no longer in season for me, when I no longer consume that food or that meal, occasionally I will go back to it, and I may still enjoy it, but I don't tend to ever put it back in my rotation on the regular. And, what is in rotation for me right now? Sometimes I'm left feeling like, well, if I don't have that thing, what do I eat? Like, especially for breakfast. There was a period of time for a bit that I did fast. Nothing too extreme, just a 12-12 split. So there was a period for a while that I didn't eat breakfast. And also with having ADHD and my relationship with time, for a while I felt like eating breakfast was a waste of time. I just felt like it was this thing I had to, that got in the way of, it took up too much time. But for the last several years, I have eaten breakfast, and I can say that I'm no longer in a place where fasting works for me. I do need to eat breakfast. I do need to eat more consistently, more frequently. And, I have specific things that I want to eat that I will go to specific stores to get. And if I don't have that thing, I'm kind of left feeling like, well, there's nothing to eat, or there's nothing else that I want. And sometimes I have felt that shift happen where all of a sudden I am craving different foods. I remember that last spring very distinctly. It was all of a sudden it felt like a switch had been flipped, and all of a sudden it was very specific things that I wanted, things that felt light to me. And a lot of times what you hear about taste determination is things that are local and seasonal. But when I think about my diet, I don't tend to eat too seasonally. Maybe a bit when it comes to fruit. But because I do want things that are fresh. I don't want, I love strawberries and blueberries, but if they're not in season, to me, they don't taste very good. I don't want to be eating the frozen version of that just so I can consume it. And what I will say when it comes to preferences is when I don't have preferences, I know that something is off in my body. I feel like dysregulated. And if we think about determination being more than just what we're eating, a lot of times this shows up for me as like there's no podcast that I want to listen to and consume. You know, there's no book that I'm interested in reading. And it's when that happens, it feels dysregulating to me, like, oh, I want to consume something, but there's nothing that I'm like craving to consume. Whereas usually I have a couple podcasts that like I crave every week, like I can't wait for the next episode to be out. You know, I'm like, I'll pick up a book and it's like I cannot put it down. So I do feel like something is off with my system if I don't have my preferences, if I don't have a favorite. And going off of the topic of feeling like something is off in the system, you know, twos have a sensitive body, and I have had digestive issues for as long as I can remember, like since I was young. I had a lot of sensitivities for years that went undiagnosed. I did not know what was wrong with me. Finally figured out sensitive to gluten, or not even specifically gluten, but several grains. And my body never liked dairy. And it just seems like that, I think from that going untreated for so long, became worse and worse and worse. And finally, when I took those things out of my diet, I started to feel better. But there were really a lot of layers to that. But when I think about how I have a sensitive body, you know, I'm sensitive to light. I'm sensitive to noise. I am sensitive to, like, I can just feel the changes in my body, which almost sometimes feels like a burden. Like I'm hyper aware of when something in my body feels off. So yeah, I think I'm just trying in this phase of my experiment, reminding myself, like, if it is not in season for me, if I don't feel like I'm really craving it or I want it, then like I don't have to consume it. I don't have to make myself consume something just because it's healthy. And, you know, I've definitely had seasons, and sometimes when a season is over, I tend to feel like, oh, I missed that season, or like I wish I was still consuming that. So I think another part of this process for me is the understanding or the acceptance of knowing like that season is over and that's okay. I don't have to force myself to consume something. And, you know, maybe that season will come back around. And maybe it will look a little different where I'm consuming, you know, something slightly different. I'm not going to consume the exact same thing, but a different phase of that season will come back into my life, like when my body is ready for it. And, you know, again, I've mentioned in previous videos that I've studied variable through Vanessa Henry, and she talks about how when taste people consume something that has gone stale in their life, that they are essentially engaging in toxic behavior. And I think the first time I heard that, I was like, oh, okay, yes. And in the past, I think the biggest thing for me there is engaging in relationships or relationship dynamics that have gone stale. That inner knowing of knowing this is not working for me, or this is no longer aligned for me, but kind of that part of me that's like, oh, but it's fun, or like, but I want to, engage or go do these things, or even though, you know, intuitively I know it's not good or it's not healthy for me. So last spring, about this time last spring, was, I think, a lot of learning for me of like letting go, like putting that into practice, letting go of what has gone stale. And I think letting go of what has gone stale has allowed what is fresh, what is in season, and really what is more aligned for me to come in. It has allowed like the space to be there for something new to come in. One last thing I wanted to touch on in this video is last week, Sam Zagar put out a video about determination, specifically taste determination and disordered eating. And in her video, she talks about how she suspects that if she were to, you know, take a survey of everyone with taste determination and the eating disorders, that most likely those with taste determination would be the highest percent to have bulimia. And I found it really interesting because I think she's onto something there for sure. But for me, my disordered eating was binge eating. For years and years, I would binge eat. And now, reflecting back, I think that it was really a way to cope with the fact that I wasn't processing a lot of repressed emotions, trauma. You know, it was my way of coping, of handling it, even though it didn't feel good. It never felt good. You know, maybe in the moment, and then immediately after, I would feel sick. And while very, very, very few times did I ever purge afterwards, you know, I find it interesting that a lot of people commenting on her video were saying they were closed taste and they were bulimic. So closed taste, wanting it out of the body, and with open taste being like putting more and more and more and more in my body as a way to handle the, you know, stress, the emotions that I was feeling but not working through and processing. So I think that's just a really interesting observation that she made, and that also feels aligned and resonant for me. So not that there's any action for me to take there now. You know, my binge eating has been, you know, something I really don't struggle with anymore. Very rarely. Something I think for the most part I've worked through. And I think maybe moving forward, when I do catch myself in that habit, you know, the questions to ask myself are, you know, am I consuming something that's out of season, that's gone stale in my life? And am I dealing with that or coping with that by binge eating? This video is quick. I don't have too much to say about my open taste determination, but hopefully this provides some insight or value to others with taste determination, or those who just want to learn more about it. I'll be back next week with another video. Thanks for watching.